Went up a little bit, or a lot. So the 2.7 is now 3.1.
I'm not aware of that.
Yeah, it just came out.
Yeah, I haven't heard that from anybody at the Fed.
Yeah, it just came out.
Our notes had it about 3.1 as well.
3.1.
3.2.
This came from us.
Yes. I don't know who does that.
Back off some of the earlier criticism.
Well, I'd love him to lower interest rates. Other than that, what?
So you just saw a clip of the funniest thing you see in a long while. So this is the G report checking in the Gore report. So yesterday, Donald Trump goes into the Federal Reserve to check in on the renovation that's being done to the Federal Reserve building over in DC. So just to give you some background, these two have been going at it for about since 2018. So to give you some background, Donald Trump appointed Jerome Powell right after Janet Yellen's term expired in 2018, I believe. This was Trump's pick. Trump picked Jerome Powell. And from 2018, these two have been bumping heads. Right? In 2019, Jerome Powell started raising interest rates, and Trump didn't like that, even though there was little to no inflation. Trump looked at that as a point of Jerome Powell's trying to stunt his growth. This was 2019. Trump bullied him, and then Powell obliged, right? So we look at what happened with COVID, and we look at what happened in 2021. Joe Biden did a bunch of spending, stupid spending, bunch of spending. Inflation started going up, right? 2021, inflation started going up. Jerome Powell sees this and doesn't raise rates. He waits until March 2022 to raise rates when inflation is already at 7%, when it was at 1.4% back in January 2021. So think about it. January 2021, we're at 1.4%. And March of 2022, we're at 7% inflation. And that's when Jerome Powell starts raising rates. And that's what triggered this 4-year inflation we've been in for the last, seems like forever, 4.5 years, right? So, Donald Trump wins the election in 2024. Who is his least favorite person that he has to deal with? Jerome Powell, who was by far his worst hire ever. We all know it's his worst hire, right? So we're in a situation where we have high interest rates, right? The United States has the highest interest rates out of all the countries. However, we have some of the lowest inflation numbers. This is where the main beef is from. Donald Trump looks at it as an aspect of the United States of America is doing better than most countries. However, most countries are cutting rates. The United States right now is not cutting rates, and Powell is using the excuse that tariffs are his biggest reason for not cutting rates. When last year around this time, Jerome Powell cut rates 3 times at a total of 1% to help Kamala Harris win. We all know he cut rates to help Kamala Harris win. We all know that, right? So now Donald Trump is looking at it from a standpoint of, okay, well, we have lower inflation than last year, and you cut rates last year. What's the problem? I got a bunch of government debt I need to refinance. What's the issue? Jerome Powell is saying, well, I'm worried about tariffs. It's July 25th, I believe. We see that tariffs have had little to no effect on inflation so far. So Donald Trump wants to know what's the problem. So he has an all-out beef with Jerome Powell. I personally think that this is political. I think Jerome Powell is being political, and he wants to stunt the progress Trump is trying to make. So what does Trump do? He's applying pressure. He wants to see Jerome Powell resign. He would prefer he resign and have to fire him. Trump can't really fire him because the stock market will go into a tailspin. So what does Trump do to apply pressure? He shows up to the Federal Reserve Board in Washington, D.C. to overlook the renovation that's being done. $2.5 billion in renovation. Why does the Fed need a $2.5 billion renovation when the Fed itself is not a not-for-profit organization? It's not generating revenue. So there's no reason for them to have a $2.5 billion renovation at all. Now, there was a little back and forth, as you can see in the video, between whether it's 2.5 billion or 3 billion. Doesn't really matter. It's in the billions, right? There should be no renovation for $2.5 billion. And so what you're seeing is Trump using his will to apply pressure. Because remember, Trump is a real estate guy. And what is Trump going to say? I could have did this for cheaper. You know he's going to say that. So I'm curious to see how all of this plays out. I think this is wonderful. The best thing about Trump, whether you like him, dislike him, love him or hate him, everything is transparent. It's out in the open. Whereas the last administration, Joe Biden, we never even saw the guy. The guy never spoke in public. But at least with Donald Trump, everything is out in the open and we can see what's happening, right? I think that's great for Americans. So how is all this playing out? I don't think Trump is going to fire Jerome Powell. He's just applying pressure and seeing how far he can go with this. And so it's going to be interesting to see what happens next week, because next week we have July 30th, and that's the next Fed meeting where they can cut rates. Doesn't sound like they're going to do it. But in September is when everyone is predicting that we're going to see our first rate cut of the year of 2025. So we're just going to have to see how everything plays out. But this is hilarious, and I like a president that takes charge. We all should. Go Report checking out.